I found out my family sold my childhood home the same way you find out someone erased you from a photograph, not with a warning, not with a conversation, but with a sudden absence that makes your stomach drop before your mind can catch up. And it happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when I opened my email and saw a subject line that didn't belong in my life: property transfer confirmation. Closed, and at first I thought it was spam, some mistake, until I saw the address printed beneath it, the address I knew better than my own, the house with the creaking third stair, the backyard oak tree where I used to hide when my parents fought, the front porch where my grandmother sat every summer evening telling me stories about roots and legacy, and my hands went cold as I reread it, because that address wasn't just property, it was memory, it was childhood, it was the only place that ever felt like mine. I called my mother immediately. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. My pulse sharpened into panic, and I called my father. He answered on the third ring with a sigh, like I was interrupting something minor. "What?" he said. "What do you mean what?" I whispered, voice tight. "I just got an email saying the house was sold." Silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Silence. And that silence told me everything before he even spoke. He exhaled slowly, like someone preparing a justification, and then he said, "It was time." Time. As if selling my childhood home was seasonal maintenance. "What are you talking about?" I demanded. "You didn't even tell me." My father's tone hardened, defensive. "We didn't need your permission." Permission. The word hit like a slap. "That house was Grandpa's," I said, struggling to keep my breath even. "He left it in the trust. He promised." "Don't start with the trust," my father snapped. My chest tightened. "Who bought it?" I asked. A pause. Then he said it casually, like it was nothing. "Your brother handled it." Of course. My brother. Always the handler. Always the decision maker. Always the one who moved quietly behind everyone's back while the rest of us were expected to accept the outcome. "Handled it how?" I whispered. My father's voice turned cold. "He found a buyer. Signed what needed signing. Closed fast. Signed what needed signing." My blood went ice. "He can't sign for me," I said. "He didn't," my father replied too quickly. And that was when fear shifted into something darker. Because if my brother hadn't signed for me, then who had? I hung up without another word, my hands shaking, and stared at the email again. Closed. Final. Transferred. My childhood home was gone. Or so they thought. I drove there on instinct, like my body needed to see the wound to believe it, and when I pulled onto the street, my breath caught, because the house looked the same, but also not the same, like a familiar face with stranger's eyes, a new lock glinting on the front door, a real estate sign already removed, curtains different in the windows, as if my memories were being redecorated without consent. I sat in my car for a long moment, heart pounding. Then I got out. I walked up the driveway slowly, each step heavy with disbelief, and when I reached the porch, I noticed something taped to the door. A notice. "Welcome home, new owners." New owners. My throat burned. Behind the glass, I could see movement, someone inside. I knocked once. The door opened halfway, and a woman I'd never seen blinked at me politely. "Can I help you?" I swallowed hard. "This is my family's house." Her expression shifted to awkward sympathy. "Oh," she said softly, "we just bought it. Closed last week." Last week. My family sold it last week. I forced my voice steady. "Did you meet the seller?" She hesitated. "Your brother, I think. And his wife. They said everything was handled." Everything was handled. I almost laughed. Handled like theft dressed as paperwork. "I'm sorry," she added quickly, sensing something wrong. "Is there an issue?" I stared at her, then past her into the hallway where my childhood height marks used to be on the wall. Gone. Painted over. Erased. I think there is, I whispered. I walked back to my car shaking, not with sadness anymore, but with clarity, because sadness would have asked why. Clarity asked how. How did they sell something that wasn't solely theirs? How did they close without my signature? How did my family move so fast and so quietly? And then I remembered something my grandfather said the day he put the house into the trust. He had taken my hands, his eyes sharp despite age, and whispered, "People get greedy when land is involved. So I left you the final deed." Final deed. At the time I thought it was symbolic. I didn't realize it was literal. I drove home and tore through my safe, pulling out old folders, documents I hadn't touched in years, until my fingers found the envelope labeled in my grandfather's handwriting. Final deed, do not file until necessary. My heart slammed against my ribs. I opened it. Inside was a legal instrument, notarized, sealed, naming me as the sole controlling beneficiary, with a clause that voided any sale without my direct consent. My family hadn't sold the house. They had attempted to. They had committed fraud without knowing the one thing Grandpa left behind. The trap. My hands stopped shaking. Because suddenly, this wasn't a loss. It was a battlefield. And my family had no idea I was holding the final deed. The next morning, I didn't wake up with grief. I woke up with focus, because once betrayal becomes clear, sadness is a luxury you can't afford, and my family had moved too confidently for this to be a misunderstanding. They had sold my childhood home like it was theirs to dispose of, like my memories were clutter to clear out for cash, and now that I held my grandfather's final deed in my hands, the truth was sharp enough to cut. They didn't just betray me emotionally, they stepped into legal fire. I called the trust attorney listed on the document. He answered with the calm tone of someone who has spent decades watching families unravel over property. "Yes," he said after reading the deed details, "this is valid. And very specific." My pulse steadied. "So the sale isn't legal. It's not enforceable," he corrected carefully, "without your executed consent. The closing should never have happened." A cold wave moved through me. But it did. It happened because someone misrepresented authority, he said. Fraud. The word hovered without needing to be spoken. "What do we do?" I asked. His voice became firmer. "We file an emergency notice. We freeze the title transfer until the court reviews the deed." Freeze. A word that turns smugness into panic. I exhaled slowly. Do it. By noon, paperwork was in motion, the county recorder flagged, an injunction drafted, and the sale my brother celebrated was already cracking beneath his feet. I didn't call my family first. I didn't warn them. People who act in secret do not deserve advance notice. Instead, I drove to my brother's office. He worked in a glass building downtown, the kind of place he loved because it looked successful even when it was hollow inside, and when I walked into the lobby, the receptionist looked startled. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said calmly. "Tell him I'm here." Minutes later, he appeared, suit crisp, smile already forming as if he expected admiration. Then his smile died when he saw my face. "What are you doing here?" he demanded quietly. I didn't waste time. "I know you sold the house," I said. His eyes flickered. Then he shrugged, pretending casual. "It was time." Dad said. "Stop," I cut him off softly. "Don't hide behind Dad." His jaw tightened. "You weren't using it," he snapped, irritation rising. "You're never around. You don't even live there, and we needed the money." "We." The royal we of theft. "Needed it for what?" I asked. His eyes hardened. "Family expenses." I almost laughed. "Family expenses?" I repeated. "Or your expenses?" He stepped closer, voice lowering. "You always make everything about you." I held his gaze. "You sold my childhood home without telling me," I said quietly. "That is about me." His nostrils flared. "You don't understand how things work," he hissed. "Dad and Mom are tired. They wanted freedom. The buyer was ready. It was simple. Simple. Again that word. Nothing is simple when it's stolen." "Did you sign my name?" I asked. His expression shifted too fast. "What?" "Did you sign for me?" I repeated calmly. He scoffed, but it sounded forced. "You think I forged?" "I think you did whatever you needed to," I said. His eyes flashed with anger. "You're paranoid." Paranoid. Another weapon word. I stared at him for a long moment, then reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. His gaze locked onto it. "What is that?" "The final deed," I said softly. His face twitched. I watched comprehension try to form, fail, then form again. "No," he whispered. "Yes," I replied. He swallowed hard. "That doesn't exist." "It does," I said calmly, "and it voids any sale without my consent." His mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, fear crept into his posture. "You're bluffing," he snapped. I tilted my head. "Am I?" He lunged for confidence again. "We already closed. The buyers moved in. It's done." I smiled faintly. "Not anymore." His breathing became shallow. "What did you do?" "I filed an emergency notice this morning," I said evenly. "The title transfer is frozen." Frozen. The word landed like a gunshot. His face drained of color. "You can't." "I can," I interrupted gently. Grandpa made sure I could. My brother's voice cracked with disbelief. "Why would he give you that power?" "Because he knew. He knew exactly what you were." I didn't say it aloud. I simply held his gaze. "Call Dad." My brother spat suddenly, panic sharpening. "Fix this. Fix this. Always." I shook my head. "You don't get to fix fraud with family guilt." His voice rose, controlled rage breaking. "You're going to ruin us." I leaned in slightly, voice calm enough to terrify. "You ruined yourself the moment you tried to erase me from my own home." His eyes burned. "This was supposed to be smooth," he muttered, almost to himself. "Smooth. Like I was a loose thread to cut." Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down. His face went even paler. It was a notification. From the county recorder. Title dispute filed. Immediate hold. He stared at it like it was a death sentence. Then he looked up at me. "What do you want?" he whispered. There it was. Not apology. Negotiation. I exhaled slowly. "I want the truth," I said. "Why did you really do it?" His jaw clenched, and for a second his mask slipped. "Because you were always Grandpa's favorite," he hissed. The resentment finally bare. "You always had something we didn't." I stared. "You mean protection from you?" His lips trembled with anger. "Don't act innocent." I smiled faintly. "I am innocent," I said. "You're the one who sold a house that wasn't yours." Silence filled the lobby around us. People were watching now. My brother's humiliation was public, the way mine had been private. He lowered his voice, desperate. "Please, just undo it." I shook my head. "No." His eyes widened. "What do you mean no?" "I mean," I said softly, "you wanted to do this in secret." I leaned closer. "Now we do it in court." His face twisted with panic. "You wouldn't." I looked at him steadily. "I already did." I turned and walked out of the building, leaving him standing there with his perfect suit and collapsing illusion. Because the house wasn't just property. It was proof. Proof that my grandfather saw what my family was capable of. And now they were about to learn what happens when the person you betray holds the final deed. The courtroom didn't feel dramatic, It felt inevitable, because betrayal always looks smaller under fluorescent lights, stripped of emotion and reduced to signatures, dates, and intent, and my family sat on the opposite bench as if they were strangers. My father rigid with anger, he couldn't aim anywhere safely. My mother pale and trembling, and my brother staring at the floor like the ground might open and swallow him before the judge spoke, and for the first time in my life, I saw them without the familiar filter of obligation. I saw them as adults who made choices, not as forces of nature I was supposed to endure. The judge entered, papers shuffled, the case called, and my attorney stood calmly, presenting the final deed, the clause my grandfather had written like a shield, and the judge's eyes narrowed as he read. This instrument clearly designates sole consent authority to the beneficiary, he said. My brother's lawyer tried to speak, tried to frame it as a family misunderstanding, but misunderstandings don't involve closed sales and forged authority. The judge's voice hardened. How was this property transferred without the named beneficiary's signature? Silence. My father cleared his throat, trying to reclaim control. We believed we had authority, he said. Believed. The judge's gaze sharpened. Belief is not legal consent. My mother whispered, we didn't know. But they always say that after. My brother finally lifted his head, voice strained. We needed the money. The sentence hung in the room like exposed wiring. The judge leaned forward slightly. Needed it for what? And that question was the one my family never expected, because courts don't accept vague family excuses, they demand specifics. My father's jaw clenched. It was personal, he muttered. The judge's tone turned colder. Then you sold property held in trust for personal reasons? My brother swallowed hard, and I watched him realize there was no more hiding behind family language. He whispered, Dad's firm is drowning. The room shifted. My father's head snapped toward him. Stop. But it was too late. My brother's voice cracked, desperation spilling. He has debt. The business loans. The litigation. He told us if we didn't get cash, everything collapses. My mother's lips trembled. He said it was the only way, she whispered, and suddenly the truth stood upright, ugly and clear. They didn't sell the house because it was time. They sold it because they were sinking. And instead of admitting it, instead of asking, they stole quietly from the one person they thought would never fight back. The judge looked at me then, briefly, with something like understanding. Ms. Carter, he said, you were never informed? I met his gaze steadily. No, Your Honor. The judge exhaled sharply, then struck his gavel once. The sale is void. A simple sentence, but it fell like an earthquake. My brother's face collapsed. My father went rigid. My mother sobbed softly. The judge continued, voice firm. The title reverts immediately. Additionally, this court refers the matter for investigation into misrepresentation during closing. Misrepresentation. The polite word for fraud. My father's voice rose, panicked. This is family. The judge cut him off. This is law. And that was the moment everything broke open, because law does not bend for guilt. Outside the courtroom, my brother caught up to me, eyes wild. Lily, please, he begged. You don't understand what you're doing. I turned slowly. I understand perfectly. He swallowed hard. If Dad loses the firm, we lose everything. I looked at him calmly. You already tried to make me lose everything. His face twisted. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I almost laughed. No betrayal is supposed to be exposed. My mother reached me next, tears streaming. Please, sweetheart, she whispered, we're sorry. Sorry. A word that always arrives after consequences, never before. I held her gaze. You uninvited me from the truth, I said softly. You sold my home in secret. My father stepped forward, voice heavy with pride and rage. You're tearing this family apart. I stared at him, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. No, I said quietly. You did. I just stopped holding it together alone. Silence fell. They had no language left that didn't sound like manipulation. The buyer, the innocent family who moved in, was reimbursed fully through escrow protections. The sale unwound cleanly, because the only people who truly lost were the ones who tried to profit from silence. Weeks later, my father's firm entered restructuring. Not because I destroyed it, but because it had been collapsing already, and my brother's resentment finally had to face reality. Stealing my foundation wouldn't fix their sinking ship. I returned to the house one evening alone. The porch was quiet. The oak tree still stood. Inside, the walls were bare from the buyer's brief repainting, but the bones of the place remained. I walked through each room slowly, not in nostalgia, but in closure. My grandfather's final deed wasn't just paperwork. It was a message. He knew what greed would do. He knew family would test me. And he left me the one thing they couldn't manipulate. Proof. I sat on the front steps as the sun dipped low, feeling the air cool. My phone buzzed with a message from my brother. We didn't think you'd fight back. I stared at it, then typed one sentence. That was your mistake. Because the person you erase in secret becomes the person who returns with the final deed.